nearly a dozen Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy (IRGCN) vessels harassed a formation of U.S. Navy and Coast Guard ships in international waters in the northern Persian Gulf, the Navy announced. The U.S. Navy statement read, 11 Iranian vessels repeatedly conducted dangerous and harassing approaches of the USS Louis B. Puller, ESB-3, USS Paul Hamilton, DDG-60, USS Firebolt, PC-10, USS Sirocco, PC-6, USCGC Wrangel, WPB-1332, and USCGC Maui, WPB-1304, while the U.S. vessels were conducting joint integration operations with the U.S. Army AH-64E Apache attack helicopters in the international waters of the North Arabian Gulf. The IRGCN vessels repeatedly crossed the bows and sterns of the U.S. vessels at extremely close range and high speeds, including multiple crossings of the Puller with a 50-yard closest point of approach (CPA) and within 10 yards of Maui's bow. This incident follows the interception of a Hong Kong-flagged tanker just one day before. The International Maritime Security Construct, or IMSC, monitored this incident, where Iranian forces boarded the tanker, operating in international waters in the Gulf of Oman. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes why harassing U.S. Navy ship formation is not a good idea for Iran. Let's get started. This video is sponsored by War Thunder. If you are, like us, fascinated by military vehicles and technology, I recommend you give War Thunder a try. It's a military vehicle combat game which you can download and play for free on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One with cross-platform support. It has a huge variety of more than 1,200 playable aircraft, tanks, helicopters, and ships from the 1930s to the 1990s, which you can take to battle on land, in the air, and at sea on more than 80 theaters of war. War Thunder's been kind enough to offer all Defense Updates viewers a special bonus, which will grant you a free premium tank, aircraft, or ship, and 3 days of premium account time for registering using our link in the description below. So take the plunge and join more than 20 million players from around the world. Tensions in the region escalated after the U.S. government, under President Trump, unilaterally withdrew from Iran nuclear deal and imposed stringent sanctions against Iran. The deal offered Iran relief from sanctions in exchange for limits on its nuclear program. The Trump administration is of the view that Iran is misusing the deal. Recent months have seen multiple spikes in hostilities, which include the U.S. accusing Iran for a series of attacks on commercial ships and Iran downing of American RQ-4A Global Hawk drone. In July of last year, USS Boxer had a face-off with an Iranian drone which was knocked down. Iranians also seized a British tanker in the Strait in July, and 2 oil tankers were attacked in the nearby Gulf of Oman in June. Images from the incident show 3 Iranian vessels in close proximity to Puller at once. 1 vessel crossing directly in front of Paul Hamilton, 4 vessels coming up fast behind Paul Hamilton, and more. As has been the case in other similar incidents, the IRGCN sends a large number of fast, nimble boats to speed in and out of the paths of much larger U.S. warships, causing an unsafe situation for the larger ships that take longer to stop or change direction. The U.S. Navy stated that the Navy and Coast Guard crews issued multiple warnings via bridge-to-bridge radio, 5 short blasts from the ship's horns, and long-range acoustic noisemaker devices. But they received no response from the IRGCN for an hour, when the vessels finally responded to the radio calls and increased the distance between the Iranian and U.S. ships. U.S. Navy added, the IRGCN's dangerous and provocative actions increased the risk of miscalculation and collision, were not in accordance with the internationally recognized Convention on the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea, COLREGS, Rules of the Road, or internationally recognized maritime customs, and were not in accordance with the obligation under international law to act with due regard for the safety of other vessels in the area. There are several passages in the world oceans that are narrow. The Strait of Hormuz is one of them. The Strait of Hormuz is a strait between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. It provides the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It's one of the world's most strategically important shipping lanes. Around 33% of the world's liquefied natural gas and almost 20% of total global oil production passes through the strait, making it one of the most important sea routes. Because of its narrow width, it's kind of a choke point. Iran has strategized and implemented an asymmetric warfare plan to control the Strait of Hormuz and waters around it. It's invested in these kinds of small vessels and has developed strategies to deploy them effectively in the strait. It's recognized that Iran has a decent flotilla of these vessels that can carry out operations in the strait on short notice. These boats carry short-range rockets, anti-ship missiles, and torpedoes. USS Lewis B. Puller Expeditionary Mobile Base Vessel has 12 50 caliber machine gun stations. USS Paul Hamilton Arleigh Burke-class destroyer has multiple options to take out Iranian threat: Mark 45 gun, Phalanx close-in weapon system, and M242 Bushmaster cannon. The Mark 45 gun system has a range of 13 miles, or about 21 kilometers, and is fed by a 600-round armored magazine deep within the ship. The Mark 45 is primarily meant for shore targets and other ships. But new ammunition with proximity fuses is being developed to counter swarms of small armed boats, exploding in the air and peppering small-sized ships with lethal shrapnel. Some reports suggest few of the early variants of the ammunition are already deployed in ships that are in the Middle East, keeping in view Iran's tactics. The Phalanx CIWS is a rapid-fire, computer-controlled, radar-guided gun that can defeat anti-ship missiles and other close-in threats on land and at sea. It's a last-ditch defensive weapon and is effective against small boat swarms. It has a range of 2.2 miles or 3.5 kilometers and has a rate of fire of 4,500 rounds per minute. It also has two M242 Bushmaster 25mm rapid-fire cannons, the same that arm the U.S. Army's Bradley fighting vehicle for the small boat threat. USS Firebolt and USS Sirocco Cyclone-class coastal patrol boats are optimized for close-range combat and have two Mark 38 chain guns, two Mark 19 grenade launchers, and two 50 caliber machine guns. The guns are suitable for enemy suppression because of their ability to fire at a rapid pace. USCGC Wrangel and USCGC Maui Island-class patrol boats are armed with Mark 38 25mm chain gun and Mark II 50 caliber machine guns for short-range offensive. U.S. Navy in these ships in the formation has the ability to shred the Iranian boat to pieces within no time. U.S. Navy can also call for immediate backup from USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Harry S. Truman supercarriers. U.S. Navy has been operating two aircraft carriers in the U.S. Fifth Fleet and U.S. Central Command area of operations for several months, with CENTCOM Commander General Kenneth McKenzie telling lawmakers last month that it was an effective deterrence against Iran. Iran is boxed in. Sanctions have taken a toll on it. More than 150 foreign corporations have stopped doing business with Iran, and many countries like India and Japan have reduced oil imports and may eventually stop buying completely. The financial squeeze has resulted in a severe crunch, and the economy shrank by as much as 3.9% in 2017-18, 5.4% in 2018-19, and 7.6% in 2019-20. President Hassan Rouhani has stated some time back that U.S. sanctions have cost the country $200 billion and losses are still mounting. Now the price of crude oil, which is its main source for getting foreign revenue, has plummeted. At this point, any conflict with the U.S. will be unsustainable. The U.S. military is showing restraint, but there are already lines drawn as per tactical warfare escalation matrix, which if crossed by Iran, we'll see quick and devastating American response.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.